guys, this is Michael with Conversations with the Recovering Loan Officer, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Christopher Griffith, who, man, we go, I wouldn't say way back now, but it's been 5-6+ years that we started, we met, and then for a little while worked together, and you've always been somebody who has been very dynamic in their opinions, and so I'm super excited to have you on here. I'm going to share a little story, actually, before we get rolling, if you don't mind. I don't know if you remember, and maybe this is common for you, but it's not so common for me to witness or for me to be a part of, but we were in Vegas, and it was like a lunch deal at maybe one of the AIM conferences, and you're standing in the middle of this circle of about 150 brokers. I cannot even remember what you were talking about, but everyone is just like listening to you preach about I don't even remember what it was. Do you remember what that was, or is that like common enough to where you don't remember?
I would say it's not very common to have a ton of people circling me. I try not to preach at anybody.
I wouldn't, yeah.
I don't end up deserting. I don't, likely it was, I would say, probably VA loan related.
Oh, yeah.
Was kind of where my prominence was. It could have been a couple of other things too, I suppose, but I would guess that it was on that. Was it AIM Activate, maybe?
It was like one of the first big AIM. It was like the first big AIM conference where first time they had Gary Vee come, and
well, that was at Fuse then, I guess.
Fuse, yeah, it was Fuse.
Yeah, dude, my memory's terrible. I don't remember.
Mine too.
I can lie real quick. It was about VA loans, Michael.
I'm sure it was. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Well, talk to me about that. I mean, your passion has been like, at least in the last 5. I mean, you're obviously been passionate about it for a long time. But you've put your money where your mouth is and your time where your mouth is and started to invest in helping educate loan officers on how to do VA loans properly and help veterans appropriately. Talk to me about that business.
Yeah, so Vetted VA was a company that kind of grew out of my frustration, to tell you the truth. I'd been originating mortgages for, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Did a lot of VA loans myself. I'm a vet, know a lot of veterans. Realized how difficult the loans were if you didn't understand the loan type. Not because it's a hard loan. It certainly isn't, actually. It's the most flexible. And once you understand it, it's probably easier than the rest of them. But I was frustrated with how professionals treated veterans and how they treated the questions that veterans would have as opportunities to pounce on them for a business relationship. And that really kind of grew and took off of Facebook. From there, found, well, I'm not very great at anything alone, first of all. Wasn't built to be an island, certainly. Found a partner, other people to surround me, professionals that I knew, that I trusted, and we set out to create a truly unique training and education platform to serve veterans, actually, and one where in the Marine Corps we have a statement, mission first, troop welfare second. They say it a little differently now, I think more PC or something, but one where professionals realize our goal is to educate them. Our goal is to ensure that professionals have the tools and understanding and knowledge they need to certainly help every veteran that they encounter, regardless of the problem or obstacle is. But they all also know that our mission exists. VETA-VA exists for the veteran or for the military member. It doesn't exist for the professional. And that's to encounter professionals that know what they're doing, that know how to teach what they're doing, that know how to cite and source answers instead of just handing over another because I said so kind of a piece. And then holding them all accountable with our proprietary data analytics tools. So it all took off pretty quickly. We've grown pretty rapidly. We have a group of around 65,000 vets. We have, 160, 170 professionals or so engaged in training. We active duty training. We have reserve training with probably another 45, 50. So we have different ways people can integrate with us to learn, whether they're a consumer or a professional. And we have a desire to find people where they are and help them to get where they want to go as it relates to VA housing issues.
Yeah, that's such a cool mission that you guys are on, because, I mean, you see no other class of loan candidate more abused outside of maybe the elderly than veterans.
And I think that's a true statement.
And certainly not one class of borrower that deserves a better loan than a veteran. I mean, it's just like, that's the whole reason for the platform. So when you see these online companies abusing or making, 500 basis points on a VA loan. You just have to get sick.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So one of the things I mentioned a second ago, the data analytics, we consume all of the closed loan data from our professionals and real estate agents also, none of it being consumer identifiable information at all, but all of it similar to HMDA data, but a little more robust than HMDA. Only we see it at the end of every month, right? It's not 14 months after it's over, HMDA rolls out. We ingest HMDA data into our system, our analytics system, which is built by Polygon Research Center. We ingest our VTB, or Veteran Vet Tangible Benefit data. We ingest Ginnie Mae closed loan data. We ingest consumer financial data, default data, troop movement data, every single piece of data source that pertains to a veteran's circumstance. We ingest it so we can see what's going on. When you talk about these massive pricing differences, right? Why does this bank, why are their interest rates 1% or 1.5% higher with these origination points applied than these others? Well, it's because they understand the profitability potential of the VA loan. And many banks use VA loans as a subsidy to their conventional loans, meaning they offer more competitive interest rates on the conventional sides of their pricing because the conventional loans constitute a larger portion of the overall market. And then they use government loans, VA loans, and FHA actually as well, to jack up their pricing a little bit. So they make more per pound. And it's kind of a travesty. It's it's kind of a jerk move. It's like, hey guys, if you're one of those companies out there, it's like, what are you doing? Come on, knock it off. Like, at the very least, vets, we aren't asking for anything special. We don't want you to treat us better or any of that nonsense. Treat us the same, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you're a loan officer out there who's interested in learning more, I mean, is this sort of something that you applied for? How do you qualify for it? How do you get enrolled and start learning so you can help veterans the right way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say there's multiple ways that we can help you. And even if you don't want to join us in an official affiliation capacity, multiple ways we can help you. One, Vetted VA, VETTED VA.com. If you go there, you're going to find a lot of information. We have an annual white paper that we publish after HMDA data comes out that uses data analytics to argue common myths that agents, loan officers, and many other housing professional types have and hold to and speak to that mislead veterans, including some like just big talking heads out there, right? We put out this annual data analytics paper so that you don't have to argue with anyone. You don't have to get into an emotional dispute. You can use the facts of the circumstances to counter the incorrect beliefs, right? Poorly informed bias that people have. Ignorance. Don't be offended by that word if you're hearing it right now and you've been ignorant. I'm ignorant all the time. It's not a big deal. The point is you should seek to find your ignorances and cure them. So we have the white paper that we put out. We put out a free home buyer guide, which I think is probably better than any I've seen in the industry. And all of these things will support you. We have a lot of instructional pieces that are available on our website. If you go to YouTube, the Vetted VA channel on YouTube has a ton of different content that teaches professionals and consumers alike many different things about the VA loans. If you want some sort of an official relationship with us, we have reservist training where we have our LMS, our learning management system, available online. It's all self-paced, and we'll send you through 20 plus courses. We've got probably a little over 20 hours right now today of module training on tactical level things that you need to know if you're going to originate or work with veterans in housing. And so we have the reservist program, which you can get into and you can subscribe to, I guess, all on your own accord onto the website, or you can come into a membership with us in an active duty role. And this is where we take you outside of just theory-based, LMS, self-paced education and actually into an active-based protocol immersed in veteran circumstance. So we use the 65,000 member group that we have. We use the 4,500 member professionals group. I'll talk about in a second. And we use several other groups where we encounter large volumes of questions from veterans or professionals for veterans. And we use those as opportunities to train. All of our active duty professionals moderate and answer these questions. They cite and source their answers. So instead of just educating in theory, we can educate in reality. And it isn't beholden to how many VA loans are you doing right now? Because if you're not doing very many, you probably aren't running into enough opportunities to practice your skill set. You ever seen the show Knock Around, guys?
I've not, but I'm looking for a new show.
Knock Around Boys? It's a movie, actually. Vin Diesel was in it. It's like 10 years old or so.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
This bar scene starts off, and Vin Diesel's in there, and he's like a mafia guy or something. Anyways, starts to get in a tussle with this big old redneck dude in the bar, and he looks at the guy right before the fight starts, and he says 400 or 4,000. I forget what the number is. Anyways, there's a lot. And the guy's like, what are you talking about? He's like, 400 was the number of fights that I figured I would need to get in before I could consider myself a legitimate street fighter. 400 was the number of fights I needed to get in before my knuckles would be beaten enough so that I would develop the calluses necessary. 400 was the number of fights. And he went into this whole thing to describe how many engagements that he had that he needed to get into before he would know he was well-versed, experienced, and prepared to do this next thing, which was his final goal. And so it takes repetition to become proficient at anything.
Yeah.
So whether it's repetition on searching through the handbook or the Jenny May selling guide or circulars or any of these other things, you have to get to a place to where you can be pushed to continually practice muscle memory on what do I do when I don't know? Because that's what happens to a lot of professionals. Whether they've done 10 or 200 VA loans, you always run into a new, oh man, I don't know. What do you do when you don't know? We teach a process to that. And we teach it in a lot of different ways. Any of y'all listening, you can come to our website. You can join up with us in a couple different ways. If you don't want to join us officially and be put through all of our training, which will break you off, it's the most challenging, most robust, most cost-efficient VA training in housing in America. And I'll make that promise to you if you're listening to this right now. There's not a company out there that's going to push you harder and farther and make you fail more frequently and fairly than we will. Because I think that's any company's job to do if they're telling you that they're going to train you. And if you don't want to go into it that deep, you can join our Facebook group, Vetted VA for Professionals Only. This is a group where, I said a second ago, we have 4,500 members or so professionals in this group, where anybody can ask a question. And our moderators, our active duty members, will answer their questions and teach around what that concern is so that they can know for sure and cite and source the answer. I don't care if every one of Veterans United's loan officers joined that Facebook group so that they could finally get all of the real answers to the questions that they're encountering and giving to veterans, right? We don't care who you are, what your background is. We care that if you have a question that's going to help or hurt a veteran, that you make sure that you know the answer and you can point to where the answer's at.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great cause. Totally, if you guys haven't researched it, you haven't got into it, you have any interest in helping veterans out there, look it up. Highly recommended. And if you don't know if you are not versed in doing a VA loan, then maybe you should be partnering with someone or finding somebody who is it a certification? I mean, how is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our trademark now officially, right? We actually have all of our moderators go through testing and training so they can teach certified classes in different places, whether it's to consumers or professionals, right? But if you go through our process, it's a rank-based protocol that certifies you to different levels as you go, right? We have 5 ranks revealed right now. We'll have a total of 9 ranks revealed eventually. This year, we're going to be rolling out probably 1 or 2 more. The ranks are dependent upon your own personal efforts and accomplishments. They're not freely given at all. You can't even get to our 5th rank your first year of enlistment with us. We offer terms of enlistment 12 months at a time, effectively, and there's no promise that you can continue just because you're willing to pay and saying you're wanting to. You have to follow our standards, our protocols, and if you fall off of that trajectory, we have a few different ways where we can hopefully motivate you and get you back on course. But it's a certification. It's a rank-based certification with our association so that we can ensure that you have the tools, techniques, and tactics needed to support veterans in housing.
That's sweet. That's awesome. Now, when we originally met, your most full-time deal was running a mortgage company. And so that was called, I think your mortgage company's name was Debt Does Deals. And
it was.
And that was a really interesting take. I find whenever I'm dealing with you, almost everything you do is based in your passion for an ideal of some kind. And
yeah, that's a fair statement.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that's how it feels like when you communicate, when and Debt Does Deals was no different than that. Talk to me about the concept behind Debt Does Deals and like why you believed in it so much and how it helped you.
Debt Does Deals was a statement that I came across after being an originator for about 4 or 5 years. What I realized was So many of us walk around and we think our money is what matters, right? How much money do I have? Can I buy a house? How much money do I have? The reality is, if you understand debt and if you understand finance, the amount of money you have not only is not that significant, not to say it is completely unimportant, it's important, right? But it's not the most significant feature in understanding how to buy houses and homes efficiently, reliably, and to make profit from them. And actually, the further you get down the line of finance and wealth and those types of things, I think you'll find that most wealthy people make choices with debt far better than they do even with money. It's why your credit score is looked at and how you've handled your past debts to determine whether you qualify, not necessarily what are your total deposits into your bank account, right? Show me a person's debt and I'll show you what their future looks like. How do they handle their obligations? And so debt does deals with this concept that says your obligation currency is much more strong and powerful and indicative of your future than your value currency. We all have a few values, right? But our obligations our power to obligate ourselves are far more valuable. You can obligate yourself to greatness even if you suck right now, right? And so debt does deals was a concept of, is my value what determines my future, or is my obligation? And it was paralleled with the concepts of money and debt, which really, guys and gals, it's pretty much the same thing. Everyone hears the word debt and they're all finicky about it because guys like Dave Ramsey, and it's a shame because the reality is all debt is creating new money. Cash is old money, and cash does one thing in value every single day. It loses value. That's it. That's all your capital does. Unless you have it engaged and invested and growing, your money loses value every single day. Today's dollars are far more important than tomorrow's dollars. It's far more valuable than tomorrow's dollars. So if you can learn how to spend tomorrow's dollars or create tomorrow's dollars to buy something that's going to appreciate, you can create a hedge against inflation or against the loss that's going to happen to your now dollars, to your cash. Right? A lot of people are familiar with the concept that you've heard the statement, defense wins championships in football. That's garbage. Defense doesn't win championships unless it's doing offensive things, getting pick sixes and whatnot, right? You have to, wars aren't won. Major wars are not won because of a great defensive strategy. You have to have an offense, especially with money, because if your money isn't growing, it's dying. Einstein said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He didn't say amortized interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Growth was the concern, not cost. And I think for me as a poor kid growing up, cost was everything. It was all you could focus on. It was your entire financial strategy was dependent upon defense. How do I save $1 here? How do I save $10 there? Not how do I take this $5 and invest it here or $100 and invest it here to create growth, forward movement, upward trajectory, right? And so debt does deals with this concept of debt or obligation being the strongest thing that I had to wield in my life, whether it was with my finances, with my word, with my relationships. My obligation or my ability to obligate myself properly to good things was far more important than my ability to spend the few values that I had.
So you took that concept then, right, and you kind of wrapped it up into, I don't want to say like a marketing strategy, but like is an educational strategy for consumers. And that led into, obviously, people who believe in what you believe kind of coming to you to learn about the concepts and then eventually maybe do a mortgage with you because mortgages are usually the biggest piece of debt people hold in their financial life. And so how did that play out in your mortgage business? I mean, did you see it impacting you positively, or was you always like constantly fighting Dave Ramsey believers and...
Both. Everybody has their aha moment in different places, and it's not my job to make everybody go aha, right? Like everyone has, each human, every one of you listening have a unique purpose that you were designed, created, whatever to serve, right? And so for me, it was how I see it. It was how I can explain it and articulate it in a way that makes sense, that's sound, that reasons all the way through, right? And so certain people would hear my messages and they would be like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Other people would hear my messages and scratch their head. Listing agents sometimes receiving an offer from Debt Does Deals would look at it and go, this isn't serious, and have all sorts of weird reactions. You can't control how people react to you or your messaging. All you can control is what you see and understand and how you relay those values to other people. So I got a little bit of everything, right? We've since changed our name. Debt Does Deals is still the company behind it all, but we've DBA'd our better consumer facing name now, Be My Neighbor Mortgage, right? We're actually creating a housing vertical, but Be My Neighbor is the name of our company now. And it follows a few of the other tenets that really founded my concept of debt does deals and what that was about. It articulates my faith quite well as too, honestly. But being a neighbor to somebody is more than just living next door, right? It's being willing to have a part and to do with other people's lives, to bring them value or be present or lend them a tool or a cup of sugar or whatever it is, right? So Be My Neighbor is the name that we transition to because it's a little bit more, I think, it's a little bit less off-putting. The word debt, I found out, which I didn't really care, but the word debt is almost like a 4-letter cuss word to some people, and it causes them emotionally to react long before they reasonably react. And what I realized was in that being forceful with it wasn't necessarily reaching as many people as I could with the concepts that I want to have. So I can still teach on the fundamentals of how I see debt versus money, right? But I want to be careful not to turn people off before they've heard any of my message. And I think the word debt for many people, especially those that I want to help the most, meaning those that are suffering the most, have a poor mindset. They don't understand how to take the little values they have and still compound their growth and change their stars. Heath Ledger, Knight's Tale, if you watch that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It is. It's such a great movie. Like, that's how I grew up. I wanted to change my stars. I still remember being like 10 years old. My dad's a framer, still frames houses to this day. From where I'm sitting right now, I actually live in my childhood neighborhood. But from where I'm sitting right now, if there's a house within 100 miles of where I'm at today that will be there in 300 years, 90% chance my dad built it. Right? But our house didn't look like that. And I remember telling him one time, I was like 10, I'm like, Dad, I just had this amazing idea. I'm like, you're the guy that builds these amazing homes for all these people. He's like, yes, Christopher. You know, like, where are you going with this? Because I'm always kind of out there. I'm like, well, like tomorrow, instead of working on their house, why don't we just build our house like that? Well, we didn't have the resources. We didn't have the concepts and understanding, right? We didn't know how to spend our debt. A lot of y'all know how to spend your money. Do you know how to plan to spend your debt? Or are you just saving a little money and hoping? That's what most people do, and it's a shame. And until you can learn to unlock your biggest and most powerful currency, the ability to create money through debt and obligation, you limit yourself. It's like, imagine if you could only fight a forest fire with water. That's not how hot shots like forest fires. Why? Well, because water's far away. Water's a scarce resource. There's not enough of it to fight the fire. What do? They cut a clear line. They backburn them. They burn the fire out. They use fire to fight fire. So if you're suffering from problems with debt and money and those types of things, why would you pick your most scarce resource to be your champion to get you saved? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't reason, right? So
the rebrand essentially allows you to reach a broader audience and then to teach them the concepts, right, slowly over time when they're ready, that you're talking about, that you were coaching with That Does Deals. And so then that allows you to actually make a much larger financial impact for the people you're working with, because you're able to reach more people, because your barrier is no longer sort of like off-putting to those people who you really was your avatar person, the person you wanted to meet. And so, yeah, smart. I didn't realize you did the rebrand. That's great.
Yeah, and it was kind of something I was pushed to. I was really reluctant. I'd say I'm proud. I try not to be still, but I am. And what I would say caused me ultimately to change my opinion on it isn't the way I talk about debt hasn't changed at all. It's a fundamental belief, and I will believe it until something within the nature of how the U.S. currency works changes. But what really makes me mad about myself is it's not the 10 people I was able to help. It's the 2 people that were never able to hear me because of the words I chose. Like, if I have the capacity to help them and they're in that place where they need help, and the words I'm choosing prevent them from hearing anything of value, is that a good thing? I don't think so. I'm not so proud of my word choice that I can't choose to use different words to hopefully reach and impact more people. For me, it wasn't a financial play. I mean, had nothing to do with that. I'm passionate about the things I do because I enjoy serving people. I enjoy helping people. It's It's a fundamental part of what gives me joy in this life.
Yep.
Right? And I didn't want to be so proud to alienate certain people that have these constructs in their minds that prevent them from even emotionally being able to accept something different. Right. And so it changed, and it's been pretty awesome, actually.
That's great. And so you mentioned earlier, just briefly, that, you're not built to be on an island by yourself. And so that means, I'm assuming what that means is that you find people to help you that believe in what you believe, and you bring them onto your team to help you grow and spread the word of these businesses or beliefs. And so talk to me about, how you find the right partners, just what is that process for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So after 30 something years of life and thinking that I was great at a lot of things, when I came to this realization, it was like, wow, I may be great at like half a thing. I'm not even great at a whole thing. I'm not great at 5 things or 10 things. I'm great at like half a thing. So how do I make the things I'm not great at, or all of my limitations, not prevent me from growing and achieving and accomplishing the desires of my heart? And so for me, it's partnership. I don't think any person's truly created to be a loner. If that was the case on Alone and Unafraid, or Alone and Afraid on Discovery Channel, everybody would crush it and win. Like, even survivalists aren't meant to be alone. And so it's in community that we find success because of all of the values that the people around you have. How boring would it be if we were all great at the same thing and we all sucked at the same thing, right? Like, well, we wouldn't go very far. So for me, the process is, one, finding someone that I believe has the capability or the values or the talent, right, to do the thing that I can't do. Finding someone that I believe has the resolve to do the thing even when things get hard. Finding someone that I believe is similar enough to me or understands me enough to where my nature isn't going to be a problem for them, right? It's troubleshooting all of the things that I know about myself and my weaknesses and my strengths, and finding and reaching out to people that I believe can support in all of the places that I can't. Like, imagine sitting in a chair with just one leg on it or half a leg on it, right? Like, it's kind of challenging. Better be good at balancing everything. And so sometimes people come to me. Sometimes I go to people. I'm not much of a salesperson, right? I'm usually more of an all open, up front, out front kind of a person. But I've been able to find people that have the skill sets and the talents that I don't, the desire to benefit from the very few things that I'm good at, and the desire to work together. They value team over self as well. And this is really important if you're going to find a partner. You want to make sure they're a person that truly values team above self. A lot of people say that they do, but they're not being honest with themselves. Not because they don't want to be, or because they're being deceitful, just because they haven't realized that they suck yet. We all suck, guys, gals, all of us alike. We suck at something. And so find some people that don't suck at the thing you suck at, and that they know that they suck also. And in those relationships, that's where I found the most success on building something that looks different, building something that has a true team culture, and not in the culture word that's all talking pointy, where everyone wants to say they have. Culture isn't a target, it's a byproduct, right? And it's a byproduct of all of your activity, all of your action, all of your words, all of your decisions, your choices. And so we create a culture of team before anything else. It was something that was kind of ingrained to me during my time in the Marine Corps, right? Team goes much further than an individual, because it can encounter breakdown and solve problems that one person simply couldn't. So I've sought out people. I've had people seek me out. We've been very open and honest about each other. We've argued, we've fought, we've compromised, right? But I create long tenured relationships because of what I'm seeking in this life. And it isn't, you can't be like if you're going to have a partner and you're that person that has to be out front all the time, that has to be the star of the show, that has to get all of the credit, you're not going to do well in a partnership. Hire employees, don't get a part, right? But if you really don't care who gets the success, and you want something that you see in the future that you know you can't achieve alone, maybe you are the type that, needs a partner.
I mean, I think everybody does, right? Like you said, no one is good at everything. And one of the things that I maybe said this before in the podcast, but one thing I've realized is that like working on your strengths is a great way to fail.
Yeah, it is.
And so I'm definitely at the point in my life where I'm trying to find partners and people and that, like you said, believe in what you believe and want to work on the goal, but have a different set of skills to bring to the table. Do you have like a list of the skills? I mean, are you like organizing it? Is it like a checklist, or are you just feeling it out? Are you like just having conversations?
Man, my brain doesn't work like a lot of other people's, and I see people that can make lists and they're sequential and methodical, and it doesn't work that way for me. It's an orchestra of noise, right? And like I'm like, wait a second, there's something missing over here. I need a client. I need to, you know what I mean? Like I don't have a list of those things. I know I'm not great at tech. I'm not great with organization. I'm not great with showing up on time to the things on my calendar, even when I'm sitting right in front of my calendar, right? Like I suck at a lot of things. And so finding people that are good at those, it's really important, but also finding people that'll understand that you're just bad at them. And not because you don't care, or you don't think they're important, like whatever. Like I didn't arrive at my strengths because I sat down one day and I'm like, what are my strengths? No, it's not that one. It was, okay, what are all the things I suck at? Well, I suck at tech. Well, I suck at follow-up. Well, I suck, you know what I mean? It was all of those things, nailing down those and understanding and being very honest with myself. Even if it was something where I could be good at it, good enough where other people might look over and be like, yeah, he's pretty good at that. But I know, like, you know, the truth, right? And so it was nailing down all of those things that I wasn't great at, figuring out the places where I might be great, and then understanding the importance of both of those lists. Because you can't just write down all the stuff you suck at and say, nope, I suck at that. I'm not going to worry about it. Like, no, you need to be worried about it, and you need to be working on that. Everything, you should be working on all of your problems. I mean, you can't do all of the problems at all of the time, right? But you can work on certain pieces of it. So it's not a list. It's not like I'm walking around like, okay, this person check blocks all the check marks for all of the things that I'm terrible at. It's kind of, I feel it out, honestly. And it has everything to do too, I think or as much to do with, can they understand who I am, why I suck at these things, and my nature, as much as do they have the talent that I'm needing here too? Because if they can't understand that, and if they can't handle me or those types of things, then it won't really matter what talents they have, because you'll flame out. It won't last, right? So you have to have a lot of grace in partnerships and understanding, like it's like, hey, and Nathan, Isabel, all of my partners, cousin, brother-in-law, like everybody's great at understanding. It's like, nope, he sucks at that. Don't go to him with that one. Bring that one to me. And there's no negative, like they don't badmouth me for it, like, because they can't badmouth me worse than I can badmouth me about how much I suck at that thing. And they know that about me. I'm open, I'm honest with it. But you have to find that balance. You have to find the people that'll allow you to be you. You have to be able to be you in a partnership. And if you can't, you're doomed for failure.
It sounds very much like dating, right? And finding like a partner in a business is essentially like creating a relationship with somebody who needs to accept you for who you are. And it's the same thing in a marriage, right? We're just, you got to know, this is like, for example, I'm to the point now where when my wife asks me to like go find her something, I'm just like, why are you asking me to go find you something? I can't, I can walk into a room, it can be right in front of me. I will not find it.
Yeah, she goes, ask me to do something I'm going to suck at that you're going to hammer me about later for sucking at it. Like, I'm going to try, I'm going to try.
I'm going to try.
I'm going to suck at it. And then you're going to be like, hey, you suck. And I'm going to be like, I know.
Yeah, just like if she says, I'm hungry, like she knows 20 minutes later she's going to have a meal sitting in front of her. I mean, that's how I work, But where are the keys? I got nothing. I have no idea. Don't ask me that. And so yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And I think for communication is one of the most challenging things, because everyone communicates so differently. Running a company myself, I'm constantly mediating between personality types that have a different way to communicate. Direct, indirect, abrasive, or there's just, and you have a very specific communication style. And so,
unfortunately,
well, or fortunately, right? Because you're going to find the people that communicate with you the best. And if they don't, they're going to burn out pretty quick. That might actually be a good thing.
It is. Yeah. Realizing when things aren't going to align, they don't align, they probably shouldn't align. I'm like, that's a really important piece. All of my partners accept me for who I am. Thank God too,
Awesome.
because it's hard when you're not, man. Everyone wants to be accepted and understood. Even if that person knows that they suck about something, they still want to be understood and accepted, right? We're all searching for that. Communication is critical. And you see relationships fall apart all of the time. Every type of relationship falls apart when communication stops happening, or it can't happen honestly, right? And so you have to be able to communicate with your partners, the people around you. Like I view like every single relationship, all my friends, every relationship is the same for me. I have a responsibility and obligation to that relationship, right? To provide whatever obligation or value I can to see it grow and get to a better place, regardless of what that is, right? Yeah. And I think that's an important quality for every one of us to hold dearly to most of the time, because you never know who you're going to be valuable to tomorrow, right? And your heart is going to have to want to be valuable to somebody in order to, maybe one of those people out there like, I don't care what anyone else wants or gets or needs, and I'm just going to be the whatever. I mean, hey, if that's your life, whatever, but it sounds lonely to me.
Oh man, that sounds horrible to me too. I mean, that's that island. It's funny. One of my team members, when COVID hit, just checking in with them, because we all kind of moved from the office to remote. And it was about, 3 to 6 months after we kind of went to the remote status. And I was just having a check-in with him. And I go like, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling? I know we're kind of like separated now. And, we're working on our communication through Slack as opposed to in person. And he's like, you could put me on a tin can in Mars and I'd be good. But for me, I would die, like I would hate that. I would go insane. I'd be that classic movie person that's talking to the wall, and, so anyways, when you find that partner, I guess every business is different, but you're delegating some tasks and like offloading some of the, the responsibilities. How do you identify what you're handling versus what your new partner's handling?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Through conversation, you have to recognize what you're good at, what you're not good at, and you shouldn't be like, if you have partnership, it's great because you don't have to take on tasks that you're absolutely terrible at if you've chosen your partners right. And then sometimes you will. Sometimes you'll have to take on tasks like, man, and they're like, I know, but I need you to get through this. And that's when you have to really obligate yourself, and why it's important to work on some of those deficiencies that you have. But through conversation, through communication, it's like, hey, I'm having some anxiety about this task because it involves X, Y, and Z, and I suck at everything except for R. Do we have any R's? Go fish, right? And if you can be honest about that in communication, a lot of the time it's like, well, what if I do this part and you just focus on this part of it? And so now the task is broken up into several tasks, right? And mutually, you're able to come to and accomplish that task together because you've identified and communicated around strengths, weaknesses, desires, wants, needs, all of those things. But you have to be open in communication about it, or else you just end up with not accomplishing a whole lot. Because maybe you have to do something that you're terrible at.
So there's like being terrible at a task, and then there's also like being able to do the task and maybe even well, but not liking it. So if, let's say you've got two partners and neither of you are, you're both, let's say that let's say you're tasked with something you need to do, but you do not like doing it. Are you just going to push through, even like I'm proficient at it, and get it done? Or if the business has capacity, are you trying to find somebody to help with that too?
I try not to do anything that I know I'm not good at, that I know I don't want to be good at, or that I know that there's got to be somebody better at it than me. Every place I can. Now, you won't always have the capacity to do it that way. And so sometimes you just have to go through hard things that you're going to suck at and fail at, and you have to be resilient, and you have to keep pushing, keep trying harder, right? Be honest about those failures. Seek help from other people that have strengths in those areas. Right. But I try not to and I try not with any of my partners too. I don't want to put them in a task that I know that they're not suited for. Right. Because then you lose momentum. Momentum's really important with compounding interest, with compounding growth, with building. Like when you have momentum, it's easier to push the car once it's moving than it was when it was stopped. right?
Yeah.
And so when you take on things that you know that you're not great at, a lot of the times you lose momentum. Sometimes you have to, but if you can avoid it, I think you should.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned your dad, is a framer, still framing today. What does he think about your businesses, and how would he describe what you do for a living?
Uh, I I know he's happy. He's happy because he sees me pursuing things that I love and I'm passionate about. He's seen how they benefit other people, himself included, in thought processes, right? He would describe what I do to you or do for people as mortgages and education and kind of some flatter words. He may be able to go into more depth than that. I don't really go into all of it terribly with him.
Yeah.
But he knows that I've always enjoyed solving problems and figuring out how to take 10 problems solved to turn it into solving 100 problems. So he knows that I like that compound exponential, like how do I grow piece. And I think he's proud of me, which, man, as a son, like you want your dad to be proud of you, guys. You want your mom to be proud of you. And so I think that he's proud of me, and I think that he is understanding of what I do enough to where if he runs into a problem or a question in my zone, he knows that he can come to me with it. And then he knows that I'll share the value with him.
Both of your businesses we've talked about have been the result of you feeling like that there was a problem to solve, right? And you just sort of using your creative mind to identify what solutions are there, right? So do you move through your day just feeling a problem and then going, how do I solve it? Are you a problem solver?
Well, so this is where it gets hard for me, I gotta be honest. I'm not much of a doer. I'm a doer on some things, but I'm really more like I understand, I see things, I identify problems, but it's not with the same process that other people use. I may be reading an article on one subject and then an idea hits me, I may be reading a mortgage article and see parallel with a problem I'm seeing in our cattle company, right? Or
Yep.
something along those lines. It's my process is inherently chaos, and it's probably not the most practical, but it's how it works for me. It's like everything's just kind of bouncing around, and sometimes things pop in, and it seems like I'm able to fill out and identify problems, even if I can't perfectly articulate them, know what their solutions are, know the sequence we need to get to deal with that problem, right? I just know it's a problem. It's like, I can't tell you why, I can't tell you how. I don't even care if you agree with it yet. I'm certain of this right now. This is an issue or this is a problem. We need to solve it right now. And most of the time, my gut's right on those things, right?
Yeah. Yeah, your sixth sense can kind of feel it out. I'm a bit the same way, a bit more like practical in my lane, where like I'm doing the thing and I see the problem and then I solve the thing, which is not terribly great actually in a relationship either, because most of the time they want somebody just to listen, not solve their problems.
Yeah.
But you've opened, how many businesses do you have now? It's taken a while for you to count them, so
It's 6,
okay.
7, the 7th being built.
Yeah.
My wife and her family are starting another.
Yeah. So, I mean, lots of problems, right? Solutions over there. What, how do you we talked about partnerships, but how do you identify when a business is worth pursuing?
Opportunity is a weird thing, and everybody kind of hears their own opportunities and fills their own problems out and everything else. When I see there's a problem inherently, I think a fundamental flaw to the design of something, I think it can be done better. Right? I was always the kind of the know-it-all growing up, not because I wanted to be a know-it-all, but because I thought through everything and I self-reason.
Right.
And I'm open to other people's reasoning, but if you can't explain your reasoning to me, it's really garbage, right? And so I don't know. I see a problem. If I feel like it could be solved better or it should be solved better and I have a desire to do that thing, it's like, I don't know how it's going to go. It's like, this ain't working. I want to help and I have an idea. Y'all want to do this? And it's usually just kind of that simple. Get in and start grinding.
So basically you take the temperature of your willingness to gut it out and to continue to solve the problem.
Yeah, and that's not being honest with myself. Is this a problem that I just know exists and that I should solve, or is this just one that I want to be working? Like, why am I wanting, like the why behind it all?
Yeah, the why. Start with why. Yeah, that makes sense. we're running a little low on time here, so I want to make sure that we give our listeners the chance to connect with you in whatever way they can. So how would somebody that's listening to this get in touch with you most easily?
Yeah, I would say my cell phone or Facebook. My cell phone number, 903-815-7537. Had the same number since I was 15. It's the only one I use. I'm on Facebook, Chris Griffith, Christopher Griffith. You can find me on there. I've got a big beard, probably stand out a little bit. You can email me, Christopher@BMN, Bravo Mike November, BMN.mortgage, Christopher@vetedva.com.
Yep.
However you need to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help however I can, or even just talk to you about a problem or an opportunity that you see in front of you. If there's anything of value that I have that may help you, certainly willing and desiring to, do so.
Yeah, and I can't speak more highly about anybody in the industry as Chris. He's definitely like mission focused, passionate guy who wants to help people. And so appreciate your time today. And thanks for joining us.
Michael, thanks for the conversation. It's always great. I've enjoyed them over the years and looking forward to the next one for certain.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Take care.